Welcome to Camille's Harem, not just a podcast by novice writers for novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers. Today I am wrapping up our theme of the month, LitRPG, Life Through Video Game Stories, by ending it where I began, with Ready Player One. The movie just premiered, and I decided to see it opening night. Afterwards, I wrote my thoughts about it on a Facebook post, but here I'm going to give it to you in full, along with some closing thoughts regarding video game-centered stories. Among the few things that can inspire someone to stay up to the ungodly hours of the morning are reviews for terrible and good movies. And I had the pleasure of seeing the movie Ready Player One, and I have to admit I was bracing myself for an absolute train wreck. The book received much-deserved criticism regarding its nosedive into nostalgia and incessant bragging on the part of Ernest Cline as to just how much of a hopeless nerd he is. Seriously, this guy's the D&D dungeon master that I love to make fun of because he lives in his mother's basement. And also that the book championed a total sexist idiot in the character of Wade Watts. And finally, the in-book video game world is just so terrible and makes the Age of Grinders from Adventure Time look fantastic. And that's saying something. So how could a movie based off of such a book, even if I did kind of enjoy the book in my first read through, how could it be good? Well, it's quite simple. You hand it right on over to Steven Spielberg. For a homage of the 80s, why not choose the man who defined the decade? The movie is basically a multi-million-dollar pat on the back for him, but it works. Though Ernest Cline helped to write the script, after watching the movie, I'm pretty certain, and comparing with the book, I'm pretty certain that they basically said, okay, Ernest, you're going to write the title, and then we're going to give it to other people to write because you are just debut angstiness all over the place. They completely reskinned the story and made it so much better. So forget all the boring and outdated video games. Forget the totally useless facts. Forget the exceptionally flat characters. Though they do peer out from behind the rocks from time to time, they are quickly driven off by better stuff. So let's jump into this tale. It starts off with your basic teenage dystopian nonsense, complete with impossibly angsty teen, doing stuff like running away from home, but not really because he has no friends and no job. That is, until he plugs into the Oasis, where he can be his true self. The Oasis is the ultimate virtual reality space where anything is possible. Wade Watts is an elite gunter. That is still a stupid name. This movie just gets an 8 out of 10 for doing that. Who, along with other pro gamers, try to find Halliday's Easter egg. You see, the creator of the Oasis, James Halliday, released a video worthy of Wes Anderson where it was revealed that a special glitch had been programmed into the entire system, when, if it's discovered, it will give the finder total control over the Oasis. The poorly named Gunters compete against the evil, innovative online industries, IOI, and their gloriously athletic minions called Sixers. We jump right into the action right after the dystopian introduction to the very first Easter egg challenge, which is this impossible race through San Francisco. Yes, San Francisco, where Mario Kart actively tries to murder you right alongside Rexy from Jurassic Park and King Kong. And what you realize partway through is that this is a great waste for a good Donkey Kong moment. There, Wade, as his avatar, Parzival, meets his online crush Artemis, and he and his best friend, H, all race for the goal, which is Central Park, populated by leftover musical instruments from Beauty and the Beast. However, this race has not been beaten in 5 years, and everyone gets hopelessly demolished by Rexy and by King Kong. But after this thrilling opening scene, Parzival makes a discovery. You are allowed to cheat in this game! That's right, using yet another glitch hidden within a poem, Parzival makes the cheapest move one could make since Dipper summoned Rumble McScurmage into the real world to fight Robbie for him. Which makes the follow-up scene even better when you realize that Robbie has been stuck in the Oasis, and has come to be the funniest jerkwad player-killer imaginable. That's totally redeeming one of the most worthless characters within the book. iRock, thank you TJ Miller, you made iRock actually rock. So, you see, Parzival's cheating ways catch Artemis's eye, and she starts flirting with him to stay ahead in the game. Which, as a high school nerd, Parzival never realized that girls can do these kinds of things where they say one thing but totally mean another, and he totally falls for her flirting ways. So, as the hunt for the egg heats up, enter Sarantos, This guy somehow managed to survive Bane crushing his face in back in The Dark Knight Rises, but he's back to his old cowardly scheming ways, and he will stop at nothing to get rid of Parsifal and get the Easter egg to control the Oasis. Oh. The movie decides to totally ditch the book's original timeline right about this point with the first challenge. In fact, already the first challenge has been entirely scrapped with something entirely new. This race was a great idea rather than having them play joust. So Parsifal begins to make so many social mistakes along the way, totally tripping on up because he's just totally awkward. He acts one way in the real world and he acts one way within the game. But the fact of the matter is you can act one way in a game, but if you are a total noob at life in the real world, you're going to be a total noob at life within the game. That's just the way it goes. So he trips over himself and makes a fool of himself kind of early on, but this is really good for him because it quickly boosts him from angsty teen to awkward teen to developing genuine teenager later on down the line. And that's super great. And it helps to really change up his dynamic with Artemis. And one of the things I really liked is at first I was thinking, oh no, this is going to be like another Kirito Asuna setup. Actually, no. They wrote Artemis's character within the book to like really step up her game, and it's just phenomenal. But moving on from there, after Sarantos figures out that Parsifal is winning the game, he sends a bunch of little Pizza Hut delivery drones to blow up his house, which is another reason why you should always go with Little Caesars. Wade is abducted within the chaos of his home being blown up and is brought to a special hideout where Artemis, whose IRL name is Samantha, helps to lead a rebellion against Aoi and promotes people living in the real world and not just in the Oasis. Because only by confronting life can they make the world a better place. Huzzah! Working together with H and sadly two underdeveloped Japanese boys, Shato and Daito, the newly named group, the High Five, goes to solve the second puzzle for the Easter egg. They must brave the best retelling of The Shining since the book, which ends in yet another dance scene. Because there's a lot of dancing in this movie. But everything goes to hell in a handbasket when Samantha gets kidnapped by the Sixers and the Ioi people, and they discover the resting place of the final challenge and where the egg is hidden. So, with Samantha now captured, Wade has to come up with this brilliant plan of somehow breaking her out and also defeating an entire army of Sixers to get to the final challenge. And so in order to do this, they come up with this amazing prison break plan in which Samantha and Artemis, the two being one and the same, totally steal the scene as the heroes who basically bring down everything from the inside, while Parsifal summons together an army of Gunters, still a really stupid name. And they then go in it for this awesome battle, while Artemis basically has her own first blood moment and is just, it's so great. And so, as the biggest nerd war that has ever been begins, yes, I would argue that in the moment of the movie, it eclipses even the fight between Trekkies and Star Wars nerds. Parsifal finally battles his way to the end and realizes, as he's playing through the final challenge, that the only way to win is to not to play to win, but to play to have fun. This unlocks the Easter egg, and some wonderful advice about embracing the real world. Because at the end of the day, reality is really the place that counts. Because that is the only place where things truly matter and last. And it's also the only place where you can get a decent meal. So take that, SAO logic. With the villains bested at every turn and the Oasis now in the hands of the people who have earned it, the world begins changing for the better. The IOI enslavement camps, because apparently we've gone backwards in the future, are closed. And wealth is spread around, and the Oasis is shut down on Tuesdays and Thursdays so people can experience real life. But really, we all really know, however, by the end, that this rule is in place so that Wade and Samantha now have time on the week to boink. The movie smacks a ton of the Minority Report movie, which is also directed by Steven Spielberg. And while Ready Player One is not so compelling of a story as Minority Report, it is a visual masterpiece. And Wade is totally redeemed by the end of this movie from his book counterpart, which, once again, I have to say I really enjoy that because Wade was a flat protagonist within the book. And I want to highlight that Artemis right here is kind of the true hero of the story, as she is the one who prompts Wade to actually change as a character, but she in so many ways leads the charge in the different challenges, in saving everyone from the Sixers, and really doing everything that she can to bring down Aoi from the inside. And she has true motivation for doing this. Her character is really fleshed out as opposed to the book, and so that's just incredible. However, you realize halfway through the movie that there is no Link or Cloud or Kirby or Mario running around, and for crying out loud, you stole a mini Legend of Zelda movie from us, Steven Spielberg. Why did you do that? Or maybe I should be asking Nintendo, why did you do that to us? Anyways, so amid all of the criticism regarding nostalgia, Spielberg, as a true cinematic visionary, delivers a deeper message. Why is it that we care so much about the 80s? People are going to bombast this movie, just as they bombasted the book, for why do we care so much about this decade that is so many years behind us? This really weird 10-year period. And I mean, you just have to watch stuff from the 80s or listen to stuff from the 80s to kind of get a feeling of just how bizarre it was. Though, I mean, the music was pretty great, in my opinion. But really, why do we care so much about the 80s? I would contend, and this is a large part within the movie, it's subtly there, but once you realize it, you realize it's all throughout. And it's this. The 80s are probably the last decade in which people believed in magic. Nowadays, we want everything to be realistic. You can't hide in the past, however, and you do yourself a disfavor by losing your soul to the cold, hard realism of the present. Instead, you must embrace both. And it is entirely possible to live in the real world and still believe in magic. As someone who has seen the world that way for his entire life, I was surprised to see that come through in this movie. And so I hope that you will consider that when watching Ready Player One, and I hope that you will go and watch this movie. Because it's not just 20% cooler than its book counterpart, it is far superior. And it just holds so many awesome little Easter eggs throughout it and nerdy goodness that guaranteed you're going to miss something, and you're just going to want to go back and rewatch it again, so that way you can try to catch all the things that you love. I mean, I myself, I'm going to have to go back, so that way I can find the cast of Ruby hidden somewhere in there. I mean, that is basically it. Since I heard that they were there, I tried to find them, I couldn't find them. They're hidden in the background somewhere. So really, what's great about this movie is that, as I said, it just fixes so many of the book's issues, and I loved it. And so as writers, what are some things that we can take away then from this superior film? Firstly, I want to point out this. Artemis's character is the kind of female protagonist that we need more of in LitRPGs. True, much of the movie still objectifies her, which is not that great. But she is fleshed out even more so than she was in the book, and she's given a very empowering role. And having the girl be the one to save everyone and lead the charge in so many battles is refreshing, and it helps to create a better dynamic between all the different players involved. And so this movie, if anything, proves that female leads can and should be written better within this genre. Secondly, there should also be a balance between realism and magic within your stories. And by magic, I don't mean just fantasy magic, but you need the magic that inspires the suspension of disbelief, the kind of magic that sucks people into your stories. People read books or go to movies because they want to have an experience, and that experience that you're able to ignite is the magic. So you need this kind of magic to be able to communicate a story to someone, but the realism that you blend within it helps them to connect even more so to your narrative. They're not just escaping, but they're also learning. They're internalizing what you're giving to them. Finally, nostalgia is only your enemy when it's overdone. Like everything else, making references to other works, known icons, and events is a way that we have spoken as cultures and languages for ages. These references hold power in what they represent and what they mean to others. Other people get upset when these references are used in ways that don't necessarily resonate with them, but that doesn't diminish their effectiveness. Instead, if you should make a conscious and respectful use of these different references, and also make sure that you make them easily accessible to a wider audience, people will enjoy the references that you use and even the nostalgia that you might tap on into. The book Ready Player One just spoke down to so many people because the demographic of 80s nerds, uber nerds, is so entirely small. But this movie, the movie Ready Player One by Steven Spielberg, does a fantastic job of speaking to a much more general audience by putting in all of those little Easter eggs, by putting in all of these wonderful references to things that people love nowadays. So to wrap this video up, I suggest that you go and see the movie Ready Player One and give it a try to see what you can do to expand your horizons within writing and be mindful of the elements that you use within your stories. If you do that, you can create a very well balanced and very meaningful story, and hopefully one that is also highly entertaining and that will pull lots of people in. So that's all for me at the moment. And so as an outro, I highly recommend that, aside from watching Ready Player One, that you go and you check out our podcast. We have our episodes up on Podbean and on iTunes and Google Play, all easily accessible, and the links will be in the description box. Also, go check out our art on Tumblr and look at the wonderful inspirational quotes and projects and homeworks that Camille has assembled on Pinterest. Those will be of great value to you if you find yourself getting stumped or hitting a roadblock. And finally I got one more thing after this. Please go to our Reddit, where we're trying to help you connect with other writers. We want to have a real dialogue with all of the novice writers that come and experience what we have on our channel and on our podcast. We want people to feel that they can talk certain things out. One of the hardest things about being a new and upcoming writer is that sometimes you just don't feel like you can talk with other people about issues within your story, or you feel embarrassed about things. Well, we're here to help you out with that. And we have a bunch of discussions from this past month in regards to LitRPGs, life through video game stories. And if that's something that you're really into, all those conversations are still open, and we would love to hear from you. Really, this Reddit that we've put together is there for you as a resource. And when it comes to writing, you should try to take advantage of all the resources that are out there. So please hit us up and check us out on Reddit. And now finally, send us links to terrible fanfictions that you've come across via our Twitter at Camille's Harem, because we will do epic readings of them for your enjoyment, and we might just also talk about why they really suck and how you can use these terrible examples as a means of bettering your own writing. So that's all for now, and tschüss!